All right. It is just about noon on February 3rd of 2024, and a little over 2 or 3 weeks ago, I got back from a trip to Costa Rica. So I'm going to go through a bunch of those pictures and, reminisce about shit that happened, because there was a lot, and I'm sure that I'm not going to remember it all. So we're going to try and keep this under 2 hours. All right. This is the first picture I took. So the first day was rough because the flight from Cleveland to Houston left at 6:30 a.m. So me and Robert left at 3 a.m. to get there, get through stuff. I said bye to him, cried, yada yada. We get on the plane. I don't sleep at all. We get to Houston. I get on the next plane. I don't sleep at all. We get to Costa Rica. It's like midday there. We go to this restaurant, and it was called what was it called? Yeah, I don't remember what it was called. But like cafeteria style. And they had this stuff on the... I don't know if you can see my mouse. Can you see my mouse? Yeah, you can see the mouse. Okay. They had this stuff on the tables. And I was like, okay, it looks like a hot sauce. It says salsa on it. So I put a little on my rice. And it's heavenly. I don't know what the hell it's made out of. I looked it up. It's made out of like vegetable and salt and like all this stuff. And later on I realized that this is actually like the sauce that like Costa Ricans use and have used in like everything forever. So I didn't know. I just tried it and was like, oh, this is good, and then bought a little bottle. But so that was the first thing I purchased. This was on the drive to Palo Verde. So we went from Palo Verde to MonteVerde to La Selva to Campanario, and then back to San Jose, and then back to Houston, and then Cleveland. So it was from December 27th to January... It was supposed to be 16th, but ended up being 17th, but we'll get to that later. So there was like a 4 or 5 hour drive from the airport and that restaurant that we stopped at to Palo Verde. And at first it was okay. And then the road like closer to Palo Verde is just like a dirt road with an exceptional number of potholes. And we were in this massive like charter bus to carry all of our equipment and bags and like the 19 people plus the bus driver. So I did not sleep at all because it was like rickety and like, every 2 seconds you would hit a pothole. It took us 2 hours longer than it should have to get there because the road was so bad. God bless the bus driver, because he did a great job of navigating all these teeny tiny terrible roads and bridges throughout the entire trip. His name was Ricardo. Shout out Ricardo. All right, back to the pictures. This was on the way to Palo Verde, which means, I think I looked it up, it's either green tree or green stick. And this in the distance here, I believe Oscar said were volcanoes. So that's cool. And you can see that this is the airport. So, all right. The living conditions at Palo Verde were outdoor. So there was like one bathroom for like boys and girls to share with like 2 showers each. All of the rooms were just like bunk beds with mosquito nets and a single fan that did jack shit. And then there was like an open wall with like this chicken wire looking stuff. And every night a ton of bugs would come to the light right above the door. And you had to shake out your beds every night because there were scorpions. And the mosquitoes were really bad. And it was like at least 85 every night. So the first night I did not sleep like at all. I think I slept maybe 2 hours total. Maybe. Just because it was so hot and it's like even hotter underneath the mosquito net, and the one fan that was in there just wasn't doing anything. So after that, the following morning, I asked to get an extra fan. So I got a separate fan pointed at me, and then I was able to actually sleep for the rest of the time. But that first night was brutal. I woke up feeling completely like dehydrated, and it felt like my heart was going to pop out of my chest, and I was shaking, and I felt like I could barely stand. It was bad. But anyways, during the first night, there was a bunch of cool beetles that came to the outside of our room. So here was a cool longhorn beetle. Here was a really big cricket that hung out in the bathroom like the entire time we were there. These are pictures from the following morning. So this is a ctenosaur, closely related to an iguana. I think their common name is just like a spiny common iguana, even though they're like, I don't think they're true iguanas, but they were all over the place here. This one's a female. I don't know if I got a picture of a male, but the males have like a big crest of what you would think an iguana normally looked like. This was from the top of the hill. So like further away from the cabins, there was up a small hill was like the dining hall. And then right outside the dining hall, there was like a couple little tables with like a tent over them because it rains a lot. But from there, it just overlooks this little slope, and it goes way down into the wetland. And I swear to God, if you just sat there, you could see half the wildlife in Costa Rica. You just had to sit there and you would see stuff. I saw parrots, I saw deer, I saw rabbits, I saw this guy, which is a great carousel. There was a couple of them just going by every day. We saw pecaries, I saw coatis, I saw a morpho butterfly, all just sitting from this one spot. It was great. It was like the shit was coming to me. So there's another picture of it. I didn't get fantastic pictures of them because they move really fast, but they're like the size of a turkey. There's another picture of a ctenosaur. That was a cool caddisfly. Oh, so the following morning we went on a hike with Oscar, and he led us around and talked about a lot of the different trees that we were seeing, some of the different plants and stuff, and we were basically hiking up this hill to an overlook, and then back down and through the wetland. So they had, this is hard to read, but it's 10 to 15-year-old termite nest. So they have arboreal termites all over the place, and they make these cool nests in the trees. This is in a lot of parts of Costa Rica, but there was a ton of them here, so they were very cool. This is from the overlook. So you can see down here is a lot of this wetland that is a big part of the national park. And I don't think you can see it in this picture, but in one of the pictures I took, you can see the pictures of like the buildings. There's some absolutely massive succulents growing on top, and we also have some air plants that were scattered about. It was pretty cool. There was me, very sweaty and tired. This was the log I was sitting on. It was also a latrine for something, so that was kind of funny. I just took a picture of that because I think that's the name of the little mountain thing we hiked. This I got so excited about. So somebody was just sitting on a rock because I think Oscar dropped his walkie-talkie and had to go back up, so everybody was waiting. And somebody was like, oh my God, something just brushed against my leg. And I look, and it's one of these puppies, one of these like, they call them like whip spiders or whip scorpions or tailless whip scorpions, whatever. They're cool as hell, type of arachnid. This thing was maybe, like if you included the length of the hands, the length of the legs, the size of my hand. It was really cool in this little rock outcrop. I actually saw a second one at some point, just like on the ground near the rooms, but very cool. I was very excited about this. Other people weren't, but I saw so many cool bugs on this trip. I was giddy. Okay, this is the tree that they call chickly, had milky sap, and they used to make gum out of it, hence the name chiclets. I think he said this was a relative of a rubber tree. This is the little tubes that termites that live in trees build so that they can get from tree to tree and down to the ground. So if you cut that open, it has termites moving back and forth in it like a little highway, but they do it so that they can, stay as moist as they need and it'll stay a little hidden from predators. There was a dead termite nest, but you can kind of see all the different little layers and stuff in it. Okay, here's a video.
Oh, he's right there.
Hi, baby.
He's looking at you guys.
Hi. He's licking my fingers.
Okay, so on this walk in the second half, we came across a group of, I want to say it was 12 or 15 white-faced capuchins. And it was this is corny, I don't even like monkeys, but it was like a magical moment. We all just stopped and stared and watched them do normal monkey things for 20 minutes, And you could see in that video there was babies with them, they were eating stuff, they weren't really afraid of us, they were just doing their own thing, and it was so cool. It was I don't know, seeing any big animal for the first time and it not even caring about you, getting you can get a good sight distance within them is awesome. So this was a moment that really sticks in my head. We just stood in silence for a while and just watched them. It was so cool. So there's a picture of the monkey. Okay, so this was really also cool. On this stick is a bunch of army ants. So there was a group of army ants just going across the trail as we were walking through it, and they were doing the dragging along different things, doing the mass where they move their eggs in the queen and stuff. It was super cool. I read about army ants in a book, and I was giddy to see them. I saw so many cool ants. It was a wing of a morpho I found. Okay, another cool ant. These are acacia ants. So there's this specific type of acacia, I think called a bullhorn acacia, that makes these big ass thorns that are hollow on the inside. And there's specific types of ants, these guys, that will bore into these and then live inside of here. They lay their eggs in here, and it's normally like one colony per tree, and they fiercely defend the tree from everything else, and they sting like hell. But they're very cool because I also read about them in a book, so I was excited to find them and was warned not to touch them. That's a cool spider I found. There was a mango tree, so if you kept walking along this main road, you got to the ranger station, and there was a bunch of planted mango trees. There was a big strangler fig, papaya. I saw there's a ton of these just in people's yards and on roadsides. Same things with bananas. So it's funny because if you try to sell bananas or papayas, nobody's buying them because they're like weeds. You can just go find them somewhere. So this was in the wetland. They had a little dock that you could walk out onto. You can see there's a heron right here. So this is looking back up towards this outlook that we were on earlier. Okay, so at each of the stations, you had to do a project, and they were a pain in the booty, but, I still got to observe some cool things. So my first project was with 2 other people, and it was about antlions, which are these little pit-digging insects. The adults look kind of like damselflies. The babies look like this, and they dig these little pits in sandy areas, and then they wait for something like ants or ant-shaped bugs to fall into their pit, and then they eat them, and then they go about their day. So they're cool little ambush predators, so there's going to be a bunch of pictures of stuff like that, which I will skip over because they were mostly just used for the presentation on this project. This was a little lizard. I think it was like a yellow-headed anole or something like that. There's an antlion. We dug some of them up. Some of them were a little bigger than this, but this was about the average size we saw. Dragonfly. This was an Inca dove. They make this weird clicky sound when they fly away, and you can get pretty close to them. It seems like they almost don't want to fly away, but I thought their feathers were very pretty. It's like somebody inked them with a pen. Here's another view of that observatory little walkout deck on the wetland. I came back here whenever I had free time, and honestly, it was one of my favorite parts of the whole trip. I just loved standing out there, feeling the breeze that ran through, all the dragonflies, and, all the different birds that you could see. There were so many purple gallinues, and they make such funny little noises. And there was this older couple that was also there. That one of them was, there was this British guy and his wife. But anytime I had free time, I would sneak out over here, and it was awesome. Yeah, there's a purple gallinue. Pretty good shot. I can't remember what this is called, but it was a wading bird that's specific to that area. Ducks. Another good shot of a gallinue. Okay, so same day, I leave the little swamp observatory, and there's a shit ton of capuchins just hanging out right next to the entrance. So even in this picture, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there was even more of them. And I was within 20, 15 feet of them, and they just didn't care, but it was very cool. Yeah, so this is that same tree. You can see another monkey's here, and here's me, and then maybe 10 feet up, monkey right here. So very cool. I was the only one there, so I was the only one that got to see it, so pretty hype about that. Yeah, there's the same guy. This was I think it was a queen butterfly related to a monarch. Okay, later the same night, it was close to dinner time, and somebody is hey, dinner's postponed. We're what? He's there's army ants invading the kitchen. So you can see all these little trails that they make, and they were trying to invade the kitchen, but I thought this big mass was cool because they were using each other to hike higher up and move the queen and that sort of thing, so very funny. This was a half-decent picture of a yellow-naped parrot that kept hanging out above the mess hall and eating fruits up there, so he was cool. That's just the schedule. That's us weighing an antlion.
This one. Okay.
Oh, here's a video of us feeding an antlion. And you can see he gets the ant right away. Takes it in. There it is. Another antlion. This was just on a building. I thought it was cool. It was the size of like a softball. Oh, so I found this on the ground. It's a leatherleaf slug. I got very excited because he's like a pancake. He's very cute. This is a video of an antlion digging. So they use their butt that is spade-shaped to kind of dig in a circle like that until they slowly dig a pit cylindrically down, and they use their flat head to flick the sand out of the way. This was a laughing falcon that I saw in a tree on a hike that I went on. This was just a really cool tree that I saw. You can see all these cactuses growing on it, and it's got moss on it, and it's very, very big. There's me next to a really big mango tree, and you can again see all of these little veiny-looking structures from termite nests. So all of these around me were mango trees, a mango tree grove. There's an itty-bitty mango. So it was raining lightly in that video, but that's a howler monkey. I unfortunately didn't catch it, but right before I started, he was like rubbing his back against this stick. It was very cool. I also got some really good recordings of them howling, and they sound like freaking dinosaurs. They make such crazy sounds, and most mornings when we woke up here and in La Selva, you would hear them. Cool bug. This was an agouti. It's a small... making sure I'm still recording. It's the largest true rodent. Capybaras aren't actually true rodents. We found a couple of these. I saw like 2 or 3 of them in Palo Verde, and then 1 or 2 in Campanario and other places, but they're very cute. I like them. This was a tiger heron in a tree. This was a tarantula. He was just hanging out on the wall, little itty-bitty eyes. It was like as big as my hand. Pretty sick. Another leatherleaf slug. This was some little frog that was hanging out in the shower of the women's bathroom like most of the week, so I finally got a picture of him. There was one morning that I went to shower, and I was like, the frog's in here, and I ran back to my room to get my phone, and then it was gone. And then halfway through the shower, it appeared again, and I'm like, man, I can't take a picture of you now. I'm covered in soap. There's some of our antlions that we used in our experiment. This I got so excited about. You can see how excited I am. I was giddy. So this big-ass millipede was just crossing the sidewalk towards the classroom part of the facilities, and he was gorgeous. I was so excited. I was showing it to everyone. I knew that they could make cyanide, so I didn't really pick him up, but he was so cute. I don't remember what type it is. INAT said it was a bumblebee millipede, but I know that's not right because he's way too big. But he was fucking fabulous. I was so excited. One of my favorite finds on the entire trip. I stood there and waited for him to cross the sidewalk and warned people about it. And then, of course, later on, another one appeared, and I only found it because somebody else had fucking stepped on it, and I was really mad. But very cool find. I was super excited about that. Antlions. That was a guy in my group carrying the bucket of sand that we needed. There's a male tenosaur. You can see this nice big crest in this pouch. They were hanging out by the bathrooms a lot. People were scared of them. I'm like, guys, you gotta treat them like geese, man. They're just being territorial, but if you shoo at them, they'll go away. They're like cats. They just lounge around.
Oh, he's on the move. Who are you going after?
There he is. This is a big water beetle that the one group doing an aquatic survey found. This was just a little candy-colored leafhopper on my flashlight. Okay, so this picture is not incredibly great to see, but right here you can see there's Orion, and further down here is the beginning of Gemini. This picture was... So one night we went on a night hike down to see some bats. Oh wait, is that... this must have been a different night. Well, I'm going to talk about this memory anyways. It was the last night we were there. They set up mist nets to catch bats, and just so we could, see them, see some different types of bats, hold them. It was cool. But on the way back, we had to like walk a mile back because there was no cell service, so we couldn't call someone to come pick us up. And me and this other girl were like, "Oh, we should walk over to the observatory in the swamp because it'll be super open and we can see the stars." And it was like a really clear night. So me and this other girl named Katie walked over and did that and just stood there and stared at the stars until our necks hurt. Like we laid down on the wood of the dock and just stared at everything. And I learned how to identify Gemini, and it was really cool. Definitely a good memory. We saw a couple shooting stars. It was really cool. I love the stars, and it was just a really clear, beautiful night for it. But the entire trip, I could see Orion like clear as day. Even on like cloudy nights, I could find him if I looked for a second. And in times when I was feeling pretty down, because there was definitely some of those, I cried a couple of times because I was just fucking tired and, you know, like hurting from doing so much stuff. But, you know, I could always find Orion, and I was like, okay, well, Robert can see him too. All my friends can see him. So have a nice connection with Orion. This was a big leafhopper, but he was very goth looking, so I thought he was funny. This is me trying to figure out stats. Damselfly with a busted wing. Took a picture of my mom. Here's an Inca dove, but he's in a little nest. Ooh. Also on top of one of those bullhorn acacia plants. So I don't know why he must not care about the ants. The ants must not care about him, but I thought that was cool. This is a blurry picture, but this is a female of that wading bird from earlier. More of those ducks. These were a bunch of little mollies, except they were wild. So those mollies that you see in the fish store, these were wild ones. So I thought that was cool. Blurry picture, but this is a little blue heron. He was almost purple looking in the neck. He was very cool. Right, so that was just a little panoramic of this dock area. Like I said, one of my favorite places on the trip, honestly. Just, I could relax. I didn't have to be around other people. I could feel the breeze. You could hear all those different birds calling. Some of those were herons, purple gallinus. At one point, you could see a, like, large bird taking off. Fairly certain that was a snail hawk because I kept seeing one. So he was hanging around, very excited to see him. Both snail hawks and, snail kites and purple gallinus were things that I had really hoped to see in the Everglades but didn't get a chance to. So I was very happy I got to see them here. There's just another picture because the sky was very pretty. There was a pretty good picture of an agouti. More of those queen butterflies, but they were mating. Another picture of an agouti, but you can see his funny little rat hands. Okay, so I was just on a hike. I think this was the same day. I just walked like all the way down past the ranger station. I was just like on a hike to nowhere for 2 hours. And then on the way back, there was these howler monkeys hanging out right next to the road. So I got this really good picture of one eating a leaf. Yeah, pretty good picture. They were pretty close to me, honestly. Not as close as those capuchins, but just like right above me in the trees. It was pretty cool. These were Muscovy ducks, but actually wild ones. Drawing of a millipede. So those scorpions we had to check for. Somebody did actually find a scorpion right outside their room. I thought this was cool because it's covered in babies. On that same night, on the hike back from the bat mist netting, we also saw another scorpion like this, but it was like in the middle of the road. All right, so here's pictures from the bat mist netting. So here's somebody else holding a bat. There's Oscar holding a bat. You can see his, he's got this big webbing here between the legs, so that means he's likely an insectivorous bat. So what they'll do is they'll come up on whatever insect they're trying to catch and just like wrap around it. So having extra webbing in between the legs is good for catching stuff. But you can see nice big nose, funny little face, little feet. Very cool. Oscar said we found probably like 10 or 20 different species just in the couple hours that we had the nets up. It was pretty cool. There's somebody else holding a bat. There's me holding a bat. They gave me a really big one, and he was going a little crazy. So I was excited and also a little scared because I'm like, oh god, I don't want to hurt this bat, and I don't want it to hurt me. Then he decided to calm down, and I actually got to get a good look at him. But you can see he's like rat-sized. This is a big-ass bat. Again, probably insectivorous, but cute little face, little stripes on the face, you know. There was so many fucking mosquitoes. That's why I'm wearing my collar all the way up like this. Like, before this, I was covering my face with it. It was bad, because we were just standing around, and that's why all these bats were coming to this area, because there was so many mosquitoes. So, there's me, excited, with my little bat friend. You can see the stripes on his face really good there. There's another person holding a bat, but he had this cute little leaf-snouted nose. There's the same bat. This was the same night. There's a blurry picture of a deer, but I thought it was funny because this is just a white-tailed deer, like the same kind we have in Ohio, but he was chillin' outside the dining hall. There's a normal cotton-tailed rabbit as well, eastern cottontail, same thing that we have here, so I thought those were funny. Alright, this was the day we were leaving Palo Verde to go to MonteVerde. It was like a 6-hour bus drive, and it sucked ass because it was all through the mountains and twisty-turny, and I literally never slept on the bus the entire time. It was kind of awful, but whatever. At least the bus had AC. That was definitely nice after, 5 days of 90-degree weather. But just as we were leaving, there was a dragonfly that somehow got stuck on the bus, so I caught it and released it, sent this picture to my mom because she likes dragonflies. This was just a cool little heron-type bird that was on the road. Okay, this is the first picture at MonteVerde. This was behind the dining hall. It was I don't remember what they're called, but it was just this cool red flower that is clearly good for hummingbirds and stuff. When we first got to MonteVerde, it was so much colder. It was like 60 degrees and misting. It was heaven. It was like being in those like fans with the misty thing at Disney World or Cedar Point just the whole time. It was great. We were so excited. Like, I actually could wear pants and not want to rip my skin off. But the road up to the field station, because it's on top of a mountain and then goes even higher up into the cloud forests, was way too small and twisty-turny for our bus to get up, so the bus dropped us off, and we had to carry all of our shit, what Oscar told us was a half a mile, but was closer actually to a mile, all the way up the road. So that was not fun. But when we got to the top, things were lovely. So here's a nice view from the top. You can see different types of trees, much more big foliage, because the last place actually had trees that lost their leaves, but here in the rest of the places we went, most trees don't lose their leaves, only some do, like this one here. But this was me standing on top of a table, taking a picture, and you can see all these misty clouds. Alright, and then there was a visiting scientist, I cannot remember his name, but he was this old Costa Rican man who did research on weevils, so they were pretty cool. But he took us on a sort of guided hike through the cloud forest in MonteVerde. MonteVerde was really, like, beautiful. The weather was very nice, but the hills were insane, you know? So you'd go for, like, a 20-minute hike and come back completely fucking drenched, even though it wasn't that hot out. So I only went on a major hike once because I was just so tired, and honestly, my mental state was a little rough because I was missing home and I was like not feeling great and yada yada, but you know, things got a little better, but I had some low days at MonteVerde. But anyways, on this main hike, he showed us lots of cool plants. I saw some orchids that were blooming. They were really far away, so it was hard to get a picture, but there were these begonias all along the beginning of the path. They have these really cool, and I was the one person that knew begonia when he asked. I was excited, got to show my plant knowledge. But they have these cool drip tips to their leaves. A lot of tropical plants have these so that they don't have as much water pooling on them, because that's bad for them, because then mold and other plants will grow on them. But these begonias were cool because he showed us you could take off one of these leaves and bite it and it would taste like a lemon. So that was cool. Here was just a tree absolutely covered in epiphytes. This place had some impressive epiphytes, like the most dense coverage, I think. So all sorts of little grasses and little ferns, not grasses, mosses and little ferns going all the way up until you even get to, you know, some air plants and some orchids way up here. There were some bromeliads that were like bigger than me. They were absolutely fucking massive. And, you know, you can see why people study them so much, because they, There's just entire little ecosystems contained in one plant. It's really cool. This was just a trellising vine, but I thought it was very cool how it looked. Here was a forest gap, so you can see the guy who was our leader showing us around. So this was a few years old, but you can see here there's some of those fern trees that I love so much. I was excited about them, and you can see it it tapers off here, and then there's another hill over here. But this is one of those forest gaps. They say that the forest is replacing itself, like the average tropical rainforest is replacing itself at about 1% per year, just by trees falling, limbs falling, stuff dying, and then being replaced by other stuff. So there's some species that will only hang out in forest gaps like this. So very cool. You can find different stuff there, and I was excited to see fern trees because I love them a lot. And here, this is a cool tree. Oh wait, no, never mind. That's not the tree I thought it was. This was just a really massive, moss-covered tree. It was super cool. You can see other people for scale. There's me. I was excited. People thought it was a slug, but I'm like, guys, that's not a slug. I know my slugs. It was a planarian, like a colored flatworm. So that was cool. This was a funky looking, I think we said it was a lichen. Here was a massive strangler fig that is like in the late stages. So the core tree isn't even like mostly alive anymore. It's mostly just the stuff around it. So we saw a good number of strangler figs. They are very cool. This was a little streamy rock bed here, and you can see all these different vines and lianas and palms and everything you could ever want. Just a cool flower. Pretty cool weevil. He was pretty decently sized. This was this big gorge that we were walking along, and again, you can see all the stuff growing on the walls. Very cool. I love this picture. It was like, we got there a little later, so our hike went a little longer and a little later than it was supposed to. So the sun was like threatening to set as we were getting back. But like you can see that it was still misting and the sun was coming down and we were going through this gorge and it's highlighting all the moss on these trees. I love this picture. It's a good one. This is a seed pod called a monkey comb because it is like hard and you could use like a monkey could use it to comb themselves. Just thought it was funny. Later on in I don't remember where it is. Palo Verde, or La Selva or Campanario, we found one that was like the size of a coconut. It was huge. This thing is cool. So it is called an oxeye bean, and he told us that all these little hairs on the bean pod, and they just grow as like a vine, hanging out in the canopy, are like super rash-inducing painful, so they'll like burn you. And then if you manage to crack it open, there's this seed, right? It's pretty big. You can see the size of my hand for reference. The seed itself, if you just touch it, is fine, but if you eat it, it's really poisonous. And the thing that he told us is fun about them is just because of the way that this thing is made and how densely packed its carbohydrates and stuff are, if you take it and you rub it really hard or fast against like the ground or against a tree or wood or something, it heats up super rapidly, and then you can press it into somebody else's skin and burn them. So one of the girls in the group took one of these and kept fucking around with it, so very funny. There was me standing on that same table taking a picture of the sunset. This was a feather that they had that was from a motmot, so I thought that was cool. I actually saw one of these in La Selva, so I'll show a picture of that later, but I was excited because cool feather. I did find some cool feathers while I was there, but I didn't take any of them because it's not ethical, and also I didn't want Costa Rican TSA to yap me, but I definitely thought about it. This was a cool mushroom. It was blue. There was a couple of these on the trail, but he was very cool. A bunch of caterpillars. This is one of the bromeliads that I was talking about. There was a group doing a project on them, so they collected a few, but thought they were cool. Teeny tiny ferns. Some sort of flycatcher that was like overheated and just hanging out. When I took this picture, though, me and two other students were just like, we had finished what we needed to do for the day, and we're just like waiting for lunch and dinner. And we were just sitting on the porch of the field station and just reading books. I was reading Braiding Sweetgrass and like really loving it. Fantastic book. But we'll get back to the influence of Braiding Sweetgrass later. And we were calling it lizard time because we were just sitting in the sun. Some people were napping. We were just reading books. We just like sat there and read books for like 4 hours straight, and it was so nice. But yeah, so I saw this bird when we were having lizard time. This was another little bird I found splashing in a puddle. This one I thought was hysterical because this is a common yellowthroat, like the warbler you see in Ohio. So he was on vacation with me. I thought that was really funny. This was a rufous-collared sparrow, I want to say. Very cute. All three birds were just like hanging out in the little area around the dining hall. So I got some decent pictures. Another picture of him. This is not a great picture, but this was a Julia. So it has those really long, bright orange wings. So I was excited about him. Okay, this was another magical moment on the trip. So it's the next day, we're having lizard time again. Actually, no, me and my group were getting prepped to go do our project because our second project was on hummingbirds, putting feeders in different locations and trying to find a difference there. But we were like getting ready to go in the morning, and somebody's like, oh my god, guys, look, a coati, which are these funny relatives of raccoons that have these long tails and pointy noses. And we're like, oh my god, guys, look, there's like 15 of them. There was so many.
You're like, so I'm definitely gonna go to Monday picture.
So, I mean, they're so cute. They're so cute. Like, this is one of my new favorite animals. They're freaking adorable. They always have their tails up like this. They have little rings. They got these funny little schnozzes. I saw like two or three of them in Palo Verde, but never got a good picture. But the ones there were always males. So the males are normally a little larger and they travel on their own, but the females travel in big packs like this. So, like, look at him. She's fucking adorable. Look at the funny nose. They're so funny. This moment, we just like sat there, and the one guy in our group was like, guys, we gotta go do the thing. And we're like, hold on, dude. You don't just see, like, I counted at least 20 of them, and they all just appeared out of the forest, made funny noises, ate a bunch of food, scrounged around, and then walked past the field station and disappeared again. They just appeared, showed off, and were funny, and then left. They were so cool. Here's one eating a fruit. They're just so cute. Like, gotta be up there in my favorite animals list now. I love coatis, or they're also called coatimundis, but they're so cute. They're so cute. Look at the nose. I love them. Like, on God, I want a tattoo of him. He's so funny. Look, like, come on. Look at the sniffer. Okay, that's enough coatis. Now is a bunch of pictures of the hummingbird feeders that we set up. We set up trail cams next to them to try and see stuff. We found very little, but we did actually get a couple of observations, so that was cool. Various places that we put the hummingbird feeders. This was actually in that forest gap that I took a picture of earlier. This was like a wild anthurium relative, or peace lily relative that I thought was cool. Okay, so another group was doing a herpetology, or herp survey with this guy named Kachi. I don't know his actual name. That's just what he told everybody to call him. And despite searching for hours and hours, I think they only found like 5 frogs and 1 lizard. So they found this cool looking anole. The cool thing is he's got this bright blue eye. So very cool. Cool moth that was on the window. We were just sitting inside doing work, and I had my binoculars with me, and you could see the top of this tree right outside the window. So this is a male and a female of this one species of bird that I can't remember, but I thought it was cool because I got a decent picture of both the male and the female. A pretty butterfly, nice colorful wings, all that. Cool beetle. This is a print of a bunch of coatis that I bought, and it's now hanging in my living room. Bulbous air plant. So this was, yeah. So after we left MonteVerde, then we went through the mountains again. We stopped once or twice to get food, get some snacks. This was at the place that we stopped to get to the bathroom, but I just thought this was cool because this is literally like a bulbosa air plant. Like, I've owned one of these, and he was just hanging out. That was the other thing about MonteVerde. I didn't take that many pictures because we were kind of, like I said, we were kind of in a hurry on the hike because the sun was going down. But there was just houseplants everywhere. everywhere. There was philodendrons, there was monsteras, there was pothos-looking guys, there was so many ferns, there was so many air plants, so many orchids, so many begonias. I was like, I need to go home and buy some fucking houseplants because I want to steal all of these. I want to keep them. I want to surround myself in them. They were so cool. They were everywhere. And like on the drive from MonteVerde to La Selva, which was like 6 hours, it was kind of fucking awful. It was like all day. But people have dracanias and corn palms just like as hedgerows. Like they'll just lop off the top and use them as fence posts in order to, and then they'll just grow back. It was so cool. I was like, they're just everywhere. And they had these beautiful, you can kind of see the color in the background, these beautiful red, purpley dracanias just littering the roadsides. It was so cool. Other random observations I made, because a lot of people slept during the bus ride, but I couldn't sleep, so I was just taking in all the differences. There's just like dogs running around all over the place, but they don't, like, they're clearly like somebody's pet, they're not like mangy or skinny or anything. They just like walk on the sidewalk, so they really like their dogs there. They seem to be really good at like upcycling stuff. I can't tell you how many creative things I saw made out of tires, like the flower pots, they use them for like drain stoppers, they use them as for like sides of road. So many random things made out of tires. And the other thing is there were so many signs made out of like old satellite dishes, people advertising their restaurant or stuff they were selling or that their land was for sale. Very creative. I know a lot of this probably stems from the fact that a lot of native Costa Ricans are not wealthy, but I just thought it was very cool because it's like, oh man, look at you guys go, being innovative. This was a teeny tiny orchid on the same tree, but I thought that was very cool. These cute little petals and leaves. This was a picture of a volcano. Okay, this was the first picture I took in La Selva. La Selva was different because it was hot again, but not nearly as hot as Palo Verde. Much more humid. The humidity every day was like 80%. Well, it wasn't quite 80. It was like 70 to 80, but it's a pretty high. And so it was notably warmer, but like when you were inside the forest, it wasn't as hot because this was like a true rainforest, right? So the first one was a dry, deciduous tropical forest. Then MonteVerde was a like true tropical cloud forest, so a lot cooler, higher elevation. And then La Selva was much lower elevation. It was like a lowland tropical rainforest. So when you think of a rainforest, it would probably think of these guys. The actual station itself was like pretty nice. Like they had like an air-conditioned lobby and a gift shop, and like the actual, everybody's room had a bathroom. It was pretty nice. Like I would go back here. I'd go back to all of them, but this one felt like the most developed, and apparently it's also the most active, both because of visitors and like biological research wise, field station in the tropics. At least in Central America, possibly in all of the tropics. All right, so we get there and we're going on a hike. And right before we leave for the hike, I get my one and only look at a sloth. So right here is a 3-toed sloth. You can see the head. Unfortunately, the face was obscured. See the legs. And it was just hanging out in this tree. And somebody else told us that the reason it was hanging out in this tree, despite all of us being so excited because we finally found a sloth, was because that it had had a baby, and the baby had just died, and it was mourning its child and trying to find it. So, there's my one picture of the only time I saw a sloth, but I got to see him. The plants in La Selva were massive. So part of the rainforest here is actually old growth, so there was some really big trees and epiphytes and bromeliads and everything that you could want from a rainforest. And then the rest of it was secondary growth, but still very cool. So here was a really big philodendron. You can see my hand for scale. I was very hyped about it. There was wild banana trees just hanging around. So as cool as La Selva was, something in the air here made me like violently sick. I was super congested. I felt like I had like a sinus infection and my ears hurt and I was nauseous and I almost had a fever at one point. I tried buying some medicine there, but it was in Spanish, so I don't know how effective it was. I don't know what it was. Once we left, I was feeling better, but I was feeling like dog shit, like almost the entire time we were in La Selva. So it was really cool. I saw some cool stuff, but I was not feeling good. And I think it might have been because of the bananas. There was a shit ton of bananas just all over because they kind of grow like weeds there. They're actually one of the few, like, almost invasive plants. And I don't know if I'm allergic to banana plants or not. We think I might be because when I was little, I would get kind of sick in my grandma's garden in Hawaii. But maybe it was the bananas that were fucking me up, but they were still cute. Another really big plant. As you can see, it had all this other crap growing on it. So these are epiphyls. So they're like plants that grow on other plants. So mosses and algae and stuff. So not epiphytes, but epiphyls. So, you know, we got the tree that has epiphyte on it, and the epiphyte has epiphyls on it. So plants on plants on plants. Cool butterfly. Cool katydid. A hummingbird. I don't remember what this was. I want to say it was like a rusty-tailed something. I don't know. He was cool. There was a lot of flowering trees and bushes planted right around the open-air cafeteria of this place, and it was great for bird watching. And it's funny because there were so many other visitors there that had these massive Canon-sized cameras that just like never even went into the forest. They would just stand around the like visitor center and take pictures of the birds there. And it's like, dude, you drove all the way out here and you're not gonna go like on a proper hike? You're not gonna do more than like the paved trail? I don't know. These were some forest millipedes getting it on. This was the only picture I managed to get of a toucan. So this was a keel-bealed toucan. I got a recording of them. They make these funny noises, and you would hear them every morning. But they had keel-bealed toucans and yellow ones. Yellow-billed toucans, I think they're called. But you can see he got the beak here, yellow throat. He was cool. We saw a lot of them, but they were normally very high up in the tree. So this was the best picture I could get. This was I think it's a crested guan. Very big birds that startle easily. They're like turkey sized. They're cool. This was my single picture of a mot-mot. They make this ugly sound, but you can see the little separated feather, pretty head. Very excited to see him. This is the beginning of a philodendron. They start off with these pad-shaped leaves, and then once they get high enough, they turn into those pretty leaves that we saw before. Again, you can see that a lot of stuff has epiphyls growing on them. That looked like a snake for a second. That's just a root. There was a early rubber tree. Okay, this was super, super fucking cool. So we went on a short hike when we first got there with one of the naturalists at the station, and he was the one that pointed out the mot-mot, was showing us some of the different stuff. And there is something called tent-making bats. And there's different types of tent-making bats, but if you've ever seen the fluffy white Honduran bats, they have them here. They're relatively rare, but we managed to find a bunch of them. So what they do is they look for this specific kind of plant like this. I think they're lobster claws or relative of lobster claws. And what they do is they bite along the seam of the plant in order to get it to purposely fall and make this little curved tent area that they then hang out during the day. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them here. Very cool. Kind of a grainy picture, but this was me ducking down quietly and trying to take a picture of them. I actually came back the next day to the same thing, and there was still a couple more of them, so I have a better picture of that later. There's the same picture. This was a different gazebo that had other bats in them. They looked a little upset because we were shining a light in their face, but lots of bats on this trip. Very cool. Oh my god. And then we went on a different hike, and there was so many frogs. We still had the herpetologist Kachi with us, and he would just pick shit up. You know, people were just grabbing frogs left and right. So, little frog. This was super cute. This was a puffing snake, and he was hanging out in the hole of this tree, waiting for a bird to come by so he could eat it. But look at his cute little face. Again, I came back the next day and just went on a short, wander by myself, and this guy was still there, and but he was further out, so I have a better picture of him again. This is one of those cute, like strawberry-colored cup fungus. There's a better picture of a guan. There's a sloth I bought. This was a cool moth that was, it got attracted to the lights during dinner, so I took it outside. It's very cool. So to get in between like the main visitor center where the cabins were and then where the lab / classrooms and library were, you had to go across this suspension bridge that went over a river. And honestly, it was kind of scary because if there was more than like 3 people on it, it would bounce like crazy. So here's a lovely picture of me taking, me going across it at night. So you can see it just disappears into the abyss. There was a lot of leafcutter ants here. So next cool species of ant that I saw. I got better pictures later, but here you can see like normal sized ones versus those big bulbous headed warriors. And then, you know, there's one carrying a leaf. But there was a lot of them here. We saw some in the woods. I saw some that just kept moving across this one bit by the visitor center. Very cool. Yeah, there's a better picture of them. So you can see all these little guys. They're carrying their leaves. There's some of the bigger ones. Very cool. This one, okay, this is cool. I know it's a blurry picture. You can see the main ant carrying the leaf, then the leaf, and another one that's riding on top of it. So sometimes leafcutter ants will do this because there's like a second cast that will hang out on top of the leaves that a different one is carrying because, well, yes, it's adding more weight for the one worker. There is a certain type of parasitic fly that will purposely come and land on these ants that are carrying the leaves because they're busy, they can't fight back. But if you have another ant on top, they can fight off the fly so that it's not parasitizing their sister and getting that shit in the colony. So, very cool. Here's a wacky-looking conehead grasshopper that was on the railing of the bridge. Okay, so just past the classroom that we were in, you know, across the bridge, they have a permanently set up light sheet, blacklight trapping, and it was awesome. This is actually what we did our project on. We used this one and then set up another one in the closer to the new growth area, and then tried to compare, you know, the differences in the areas. But basically, I picked this project because it gave me an excuse to look at cool bugs, and there was so many cool bugs. So this was a big, I don't know what kind of moth, but you can just barely see it under the wing, and I have pictures later. This is one of the moths that has those big eye spots underneath. So, very cool. There was a number of species like that. Longhorn beetle, another big moth, another one on the other side. There's that guy. So, there was actually a rather old imperial moth. I think this is I think it's a male based off the dark coloration. You can see it's rather old because of how tattered the wings are looking, but I was so excited. I made everybody stop. I made them take a picture. I showed them my tattoo. I'm like, guys, look at this moth. Look at this imperial moth. We have these in Ohio. But so we kept coming back the 3 or 4 days that we were there. And this guy came back every time. I even moved him off the tarp at one point and we're like, dude, you're going to get eaten. I moved him somewhere else and lo and behold, he was back by the next morning. So he was my buddy. Very in love with the imperial moths as always. And you can see I was rocking the fish want me hat the whole trip. Cool little guy that looked like he had lichen on him. Cicada. A cool sphinx moth. There was a number of these Dobson flies. Very cool, wicked looking. All right. On this day we went on a hike that was supposed to take us maybe a mile or two, you know, like an hour or two, except Oscar got lost, so we went more like 8 miles and it took us like 5 hours. So we saw cool stuff, but everyone was very tired and not feeling great by the end. So here's a rather famous tree there because I think it was a strangler fig, but you can see you could walk right through it. They didn't even do anything to it. It just did this. Because the center trees in the strangler fig often die, it can make crazy shapes like this. But you can see in this picture all these different layers to the canopy. So very cool. This was over a little bridge. You can see all the different stuff. The trip, the water. I think I took a picture of this because, like, look at all these epiphytes. Look at all these epiphytes, dude. That's bonkers. Just a really big tree again, person for scale. Yeah, you can see how deep across it is. This is actually Katie, the girl that I talked about seeing the stars with. This was me taking pictures of things I wish I could have taken again, because look at these. Look at these beautiful boys. They're so cool. This is a bullet ant. My hand got really close to it. I found bigger ones later. We actually found a nest of them on one tree at some point, but the last cool ant that I saw, so we had the army ants, the acacia ants, the leafcutter ants, and the bullet ants, all the crazy ants you could ever want. This was, okay, so this is from a distance, but this damselfly was absolutely massive. Like, it was as big as my hand. I wish I could have gotten a better picture of it, but it was really cool. This was a small little wetland that we walked through. This was also really cool. So this is a philodendron on the trunk of a tree, and right here is the corpse of a moth that has had that, like, zombie fungus popping out of it. So it has it land relatively low on the trunk, and then all these crazy fungus things pop out of it. Here's a side view. I was very excited about this. Everyone was tired by this point, but I was like, no, guys, this is like the shit you see on Animal Planet. You have to come look at this. It's so cool. Okay, so this area is cool because normally the ground's covered in other plants and leaves and shit. This area is so clear because it is a at least 20-year-old leafcutter ant colony. So that's why there's, all these leaves are like torn up and the ground is very clear. And over here you can see entrances to the nest. So it goes all the way around here, and we saw a couple moving around. This were just some crazy lianas that were over the path. Again, all these layers to the canopy. This is a cool bean. Cool air plant. Another bullet ant that I got really close to, but you can see these big ass bites. There's my finger for scale again. He was even bigger. This was one of those walking palms. So this is just the bottom of it, but you can see it has all these crazy stilt legs, and they actually get to a point where they have so many stilt legs that they're kind of lifting themselves up, and the base one will die off or break off, and they can actually, like, if they get moved, on their own accord, just from where the stilt legs come out, or from like a storm or something, they can actually reroute themselves. So one tree can be found to move a considerable amount of distance within its lifetime. So it's actually a tree that can very slowly walk. I just thought this was cool because this was the old growth part, the ecological reserve, and experiments are not permitted. You have to really jump through some hoops because they're trying to keep this area as preserved as possible. This was just a cool tree, I think. Oh, I think he said, I don't remember what kind of tree this was, but it's one that is very possibly going to go extinct in our lifetime because they need really specific climate conditions in order to, like, have their babies work, and climate change is fucking them up. So I think that's why I took a picture of it, but I can't remember the name of it. I want to say it was related to mahogany. Teeny tiny froggy. Okay, we're getting to the point where there's a piss load of frogs. This is just a cool liana. Look at that. Look at that. Make sure I'm still recording. Okay, yeah, still recording. Okay, yeah. Just checking. Cool beetle. Yep. They have these little posts here because the entire forest is divided up into like GIS quadrants. So if you're really lost, you can use that to find where you are. Poison dart frog! So we saw a lot of these. It took me a while to get a picture of one because they're really little and they move really quickly. But so this is that strawberry poison dart frog, or they're also called blue jeans because it looks like he's wearing pants. Some sort of leaf litter toad. Another small frog. Another cool, like, narrow leaf-esque toad. This was a mud bed. Yeah, so right before we saw this, Oscar stops and he goes, oh, guys, there's pecaries nearby. And pecaries are these boar-looking relatives of... They're not that closely related, but they look very similar to pigs or, like, wild boars. And there's white-lipped pecaries and there's collared pecaries, and we actually saw both of them at various places. I think we saw collared pecaries in La Selva and Palo Verde, and then we saw white-lipped pecaries in Campanario. But, so this unsuspecting little thing of mud is a mud wallow that the pecaries were using. And right before we found this, Oscar stops and he goes, oh, guys, do you smell that? And there's like this kind of acidic, musky scent in the air, and he's like, that means there's pecaries nearby, because I guess they, kind of stink. And then literally like 2 seconds after he says that, you can hear something crashing through the woods, and like 4 of them run by really quick, and they're making like noises. And then like you can see that there's one more like big one following them, and Oscar's like, oh, that's the male, and he starts like clicking and whistling at it. He's like, I'm gonna try and get it to challenge us. And we're like, what are you doing? We don't want the wild pig to challenge us. But it like stopped in the trail for a minute and just stared at him, like it clearly thought about it and then moved on. So I unfortunately didn't get a picture because it all happened very quickly, but cool memory. And there is the mud wallow that they were hanging out in just before we got there. This is one of those cool feathers I found. I have no idea what this is from. Maybe a mot-mot, maybe some sort of parrot, but very cool. Wish I could have taken it. Another crazy looking liana. It was almost like a bench. Here is a poison dart frog that Kachi just picked up. So apparently you can pick them up, but you like can't touch your face, or you should try avoid touching your skin afterwards because it can make you very numb. So that was funny. I didn't know you could actually pick them up. Pretty butterfly, or I think it was a day flying moth actually, and it was getting it on. This was a cool picture because I originally took it because I was like, oh man, look at all the leafcutter ants, right? Not realizing that I actually got a picture of them actively cutting up the leaf. So you can see that you have the little ones doing their job and these big ones helping them out and protecting them. So I originally took this picture because I was just like, man, look at all those leafcutter ants, because I was really tired. Later realizing, oh, I got a picture of them actively doing the thing. So that was pretty cool. Another picture of a poison dart frog. This is that other monkey comb that's absolutely massive, so you can see somebody's hand for scale, like twice the size of the last one. Another frog. Just a nice picture of the different layers of the canopy. You can see all the epiphytes up there, all the stuff down here, all these palms in the middle, all these really tall ones. Very cool stuff. Really big frog. I think it was a toad, actually. Another little frog. I don't remember why. I think I took a picture because this tree was really big. This picture doesn't do it justice. This is some sort of flycatcher. I don't remember what they're called, but they were all over the place, and they were very cool. They would just like hang out on signs and buildings and stuff. Very cool. I liked them. These were in one of those trees that I talked about by the visitor center. I want to say they were called like a shining honey creeper or something like that, but they had these yellow legs and pretty blue bodies. Very like them. This guy was really cool. This was another type of, I think it's called a honey creeper, but very pretty. Bunch of turtles that you could see from the top of the suspension bridge. This was a scarlet rump tanager, I think it is, and it was eating from one of these banana lobster claw looking plants. You can see it's got stuff in it, nice blue beak. Good picture. This was a heartleaf philodendron just hanging out from a tree. I was like, I know you. Thought that was cool. This is more moth pictures. We saw so many cool moths. It was awesome. I love moths. But here's one of the ones. He's a little older, but you can see it has those big, pretty eye spots. There was at least 3 or 4 different species that came in different colors and sizes, but they all had these eye spots underneath when you carefully lifted their wings. There's another one. He's a little tattered, but still very pretty. And you can see the imperial moth again. Yeah, there he is. I picked him up and I showed him to like this pair of other tourists, and they were like, "Oh, thank you so much," because they clearly didn't speak English. I think they were German, but it was very cool. He's so baby. Look at the baby face. I love moths. There's a cool one. Oh, so they had a small greenhouse. I say greenhouse. It was really just like chicken wire because the entire climate there is like you're in a greenhouse. But they had some orchids that had like fallen off of trees, and then they repotted them to, just keep them alive. So they had a small collection, and I took a picture of some of the ones that were blooming. Teeny tiny guys. This one was very pretty. I swear to God, I've seen these at the Cleveland Orchid Show before, so I'm like, I know you. Same with this one. Very pretty. He smelled vaguely of vanilla, I think. This one was actually one of the only wild ones that I was able to get a good picture of, and I thought it was cool because I'm like, I swear to God, I have an orchid like this at home. So I was very excited about him. This was in the small library they had. This is the skull of a, I want to say white-lipped peccary or white-collared peccary, but I just thought that was cool. A little moth that's camouflaged like a stick. There's a picture of the visitor center. This was cool because, again, Imperial moth's still there, and that other moth that I picked up earlier. There was praying mantises that would come to the sheet, but one of our hypotheses was that stuff was predating other insects that came to the sheet. And here is a picture of a praying mantis eating something else that came to the sheet. So it kind of proved our hypothesis. So that was cool. I took a lot of pictures of insects, both because I think they're cool and because we needed them for the presentation. So we're going to go through a bunch of those. This is just this silky, pretty moth and a mosquito, big scarab beetle, a banana cockroach. I thought he was kind of funny. Some sort of caddisfly, another big beetle. Here's like a whole thing of the, the sheet. So you got some antlions, some moths, a big beetle. We had to put up signs that said, "Por favor no toques," or "Research and projects, please don't touch," because the first night we got video footage of people walking up and just touching the bugs. And it's like, okay, don't do that. Big katydid, little leafhopper. This was soap that they gave us, but I thought it was funny because it had the froggies on it. Here was a sphinx moth. That same silky guy, but look at his cute little face. Another sphinx moth. Pretty one. This is another one of those eye spot ones. This guy was, I don't even know what kind he is, but he's real cool looking. I imagine he's camouflaged somewhere that isn't a white sheet. One of the few teeny tiny mayflies that we found. Imperial moth again. Cicada. This fuzzy little orange guy, he's so baby and cute. He was only like an inch long, but he was so fluffy. Oh, okay, so one of the days we were at La Selva, we went to a banana plantation. It was very small. It was clearly run by like one family, and it was like they tried to be as naturalized as they could. So they had like 12 different varieties of banana and plantain. They also grew peppercorn and had native bees, and they were trying to do it as good as they can. So we actually learned some cool history there, and then they had us harvest some of these plantains, and then we made, I don't know what they're called, but you basically take the plantain and you slice it up, flatten the slices, and then like deep fry them. It was pretty good. They also gave us this drink called, I think it translates to like toad water, which was basically like iced tea lemonade with ginger in it. It was very good. Yeah, there's a nice picture of how the banana/plantain actually comes undone. Because I've always seen this and been like, how does this work? But I thought that was cool. There is Katie with the machete and the plantains that we cut down. And then this was just a plant that they had there that I thought was pretty. So across the way from where we were sitting and eating our plantains, they had a bunch that needed to be sent out and processed or whatever. And there was a bunch of birds that were coming and I think eating the bugs off of them. So this was some sort of blue tanager that I thought was cool. So we're looking right here. Yeah, so after the banana plantation, I just went on a short walk by myself, around the visitor center and down one of the paths. And I found this, I think it was called a red lord parrot. But he was eating whatever this fruit is. But I thought it was so funny because he just like stops eating when he sees me and like drops his food. It was so funny. There was at least one more, maybe two higher up in the tree, but he was pretty cool. Yeah, there's a pretty good picture of it. So you can see the fruit that he was eating. It's still on his beak and I think he was mad that I was watching him, so he was leaving. But very cool. I just liked the lianas in this picture. This was some sort of skink that I found. Okay, here's the better picture of the little bats. You can see, again, it's that underneath view of the tent. You can see their cute little noses and wings. They were so cute. There was only 3 today, but that was a good day. That was a really big tank bromeliad that I tried to take a picture with. This I just thought was cool because you have these big lianas going over this path. And then the lianas are covered in all these other epiphytes and these like big bromeliads just hanging out. Look at all that. Very cool. This is that better picture of the puffing snake. He looks so smug. He's so happy. Very cool. This was a gecko. This was that river, except I got closer down next to it. I didn't get a picture of it, but right as we were standing there was a kingfisher that flew by. This was eggs on the sheet. Oh, okay, so we're getting this night of insect observations was, I think, the coolest, just because we found a couple cool things. So here is a big longhorn beetle that honestly looks pretty similar to the one that I had that was like one of the first pictures. Another mantis hanging out. We were just trying to show that there was a ton of these tiny little moths and flies. The imperial moth was back. There's a fly, another fly, cricket. There was a number of crickets and katydids. Daddy longlegs, or a harvestman. This puppy! I have no idea what the species is. I think it's semi-related to the like other snakehead atlas moth looking guys, but it was so big. Look at it. It's so big, dude. Like, that's my hand for scale. That's a normal, like, inch-sized moth. Like, he's fucking huge. It was so cool, and he was fluffy. It was still there the next morning, so I tried to, like, pick it up because I wanted a picture, but it flew away. But, like, you could hear it flap. It was that big. It was so cool. And then the other really cool find, this is a harlequin beetle. It's massive. It's so cool. And I was so excited because it just hung out there and for like the entire like next 24 hours. And I was like, guys, I literally just got one of these for Christmas from my mom, like a pinned one. And now here is an alive one. Nobody else understood my bug hype, but I was so excited. Like, hand for scale. He was so cool. There's another pretty moth, a spider, another good picture of the beetle, like side profile. Good a handsome fella. I actually looked it up because I was curious. I was like, how does something like this even camouflage? Apparently this beetle will, it lays its eggs on a certain type of tree, like a tree that is infected with a certain kind of like lichen. And they are actually patterned similar to the lichen. So when they're on their area where they're most vulnerable laying eggs or having sex, then they are camouflaged. But most of the other time, they're not that camouflaged. But if you're this big, you probably don't need to be... There's probably not that much other stuff that's eating you. Again, another picture with my hand. I was so excited. And another picture of him. And another picture showing how many goddamn gnats I had to count. Oh, here's one of those underwing moths. But it was like the last days we were taking down the sheet. And I had to shake him off, but he decided to start displaying, so of course I had to take a picture. Okay, this was cool. It was I have two pictures, and neither of them are very good. You can kind of see an ear right here. This is a lesser anteater, or called like a tamaranda or something like that. But, you know, we were sitting in the classroom making our presentation and shit, and somebody comes running in and it's like, guys, there's an anteater on the bridge! So we all come running out, and these were the two pictures I managed to get of it. But I got to see its face. It was cool. These were some tiny stingless bees. So they have a lot of bees there, but they're kind of, you know, sparsely distributed. And a lot of them are stingless or semi-solitary or in small groups, but I thought they were cool. Okay, so this day, we went to a banana plantation, and then we went to a cocoa plantation, which was, again, a relatively small operation, but it was very cool. And I took pictures because they kind of took us through the process and let us taste stuff along the way. So this is a raw cacao or cocoa fruit. This is the tiny little flowers that they come from that appear all over the tree, you know, on the trunks, on the branches, wherever. These are the raw fruit. The outside is surprisingly sweet, and the inside is pretty bitter. This is the inside after it's been roasted. It doesn't taste like chocolate. It is still pretty bitter. This is that, but ground up. Still pretty bitter, but had a nice texture. And then we added more sugar and like powdered milk to it, and they let us taste it, and it finally started tasting like chocolate. And then they gave us this drink, which was basically the ground up full, as close to natural chocolate as you can get, mixed with a little bit of water, milk, and I think a little bit of salt, but it was very good. It was a drawing of a bat. All right. After the cocoa plantation, then we were on another very long bus ride across the country to get to Campanario. So first we were staying in this little town called Sierpe, and then we drove like another hour or two to get to Campanario, and it was that day was rough. But we stopped at a waterfall off the side of the road, and I got these pretty good pictures. You can see all the water down here, but there's all these crazy plants growing off the sides and stuff. was very cool. And the sun shining in. Very good pictures. Oh, yeah. On the way to Sierpe, we also stopped at a coffee plantation. So, I didn't think this one was that cool because I don't really like coffee, but it was still neat to see the process, see what the trees look like. They started off by giving us a little. Then I took a picture of, this is the different stages. So you have the fruit, you get the thing out of the fruit. There's 2 of these. Then you dry this out, get the bit off, and then you have this bit, and then you dry this even more, and then roast it, and then you have your coffee bean. Also, after the coffee plantation, we stopped on this one bridge that is infamous for crocodiles. So there used to be a natural, crocodile wallowing hole underneath this bridge because it's kind of close to where the ocean meets this river. So it's got that, saltwater estuarine thing that they like. And it used to be a natural one, but now they think they keep coming back because people fucking feed them. And even when we were there was, you can see how many there were. Just hanging out. But there was people, throwing french fries and, hamburgers at them, trying to get them to jump. It made me really mad, but it was cool to see crocodiles. Because I saw alligators before, and I've seen crocodiles, too. It's a pretty good pick. All right. This is the first picture I took at Campanario. The trip to Campanario was rough. It was rough. So we get on a boat. We wake up in the morning from this little, dive motel that we stayed at in Sierpe. We walk down the road to this breakfast place. We eat breakfast. We load all of our shit into trash bags, load them all into these tiny 2 boats because we were supposed to have a bigger boat, but they just gave us 2 tiny ones for some reason. And then we drive. It's an hour and a half boat ride. So the first half of it is going through this tangling mass of mangrove swamps, which were really cool. I didn't take any pictures because I didn't want to lose my phone, but they were super tall. They were the size of Ohio trees, but mangroves, because it's, I think, one of the largest areas of protected mangroves in the world. So, similar vibe to what I saw in the Everglades, but even taller, a little different. Pretty cool. And then we stopped partway through and we kayaked for a half an hour or an hour through the mangroves. I didn't really see anything crazy, but it was still fun to kayak. I got pretty sunburnt. Then we get back on the boat and we get out of the mangroves and we're sailing along the open ocean until we can get to Campanario, which, as you can see, this is the cove. There was no dock. It was a wet landing. So they just backed the boat in here. And a bunch of people came rushing out, grabbed the boat, pulled it enough ashore so that we could all get off and carry our shit through the water to the edge. And then the boat takes off again. And when we had to leave, it was the same fiasco. Also, when we leave, so when we get here, we were supposed to have 2, medium-sized boats, right? They give us 1 medium-sized boat and a small boat. And we're like, okay. And then they load all of the fucking luggage onto the small boat. And it's oh God, okay. Then on the way back, we were supposed to have 2 medium-sized boats. They give us 1 medium to large-sized boat. And we're all sitting here are we gonna fit? Because there's fucking 20 of us. Because there was 2 other people that were leaving. So actually 21 of us, plus the driver. And then we had all of our shit in there. And I'm just watching them load the shit up and watching the boat slowly get heavier and heavier. And I was like, oh my God, I hate this. I'm a landlubber through and through. I don't like boats. But anyways, we're clipping along on the way to Campanario, and I'm losing my shit. I am white-knuckling the thing in front of me, I'm closing my eyes, I'm trying not to get sick. I took medicine so that I probably wouldn't get sick, but I was just freaking out. And for some reason, at that moment, this sounds really corny, I just started praying. I remembered some of the stuff I was reading about in Braiding Sweetgrass, which talks a lot about, indigenous beliefs and how a lot of their, I guess what you could call prayer is rooted in gratitude. It's thanking the earth and everything on it for everything that you've been gifted, And I remembered when I was on the Adirondack trip, the wilderness trip in 2021, there was one point that I was with, I was walking behind Chris, and he was quiet for a while, and it was later on in the trip. Everyone was tired, but he hadn't said anything for a half an hour. And I'm, everybody else is kind of a little further behind. So I'm like, hey, Chris, what are you thinking about? He goes, oh, I'm just thanking the trees. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I'm thanking the forest for safe passage. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he actually mentioned braiding sweetgrass and how, in a lot of beliefs, he was like thanking the forest for everything that he was seeing, for safe passage, for protecting us from the rain, for not tripping his feet, for showing us all the cool things that we'd seen. And at the time, I was still very skeptical about any sort of spirituality and religion and anything like that, but it stuck with me. I remembered it. The thought of just thanking the forest for whatever you've seen, for safe passage, for anything like that. And periodically I would have a passing thought of like, oh, that was a good day, thanks forest, whatever. But for some reason, I'm on this boat. I am white-knuckling it because I am scared shitless because every time we hit a wave in this tiny little boat, I watch all of our luggage threaten to fly out. And I remembered what Chris said. I remembered the conversations I've had with Patty and Adrian and all of those, spiritual people. I remembered the stuff I read in Braiding Sweetgrass, and I just started talking to the ocean. It wasn't super formal. It was just like, hey, ocean, my name's Emily. I don't really want to be here, but thank you for, not storming. Thank you for letting us pass. Thank you for these sights. Honestly, it's really gorgeous. I know I'm freaking out right now, but I've seen a lot of really cool stuff. So it was just me trying to comfort myself by thanking the ocean for everything that it had given me and shown me and what it hadn't done to me. And I felt a little silly, but I also felt very nice. So I don't know. I don't know if I'll do that kind of thing again. I did it again later when you can see it here. There's this little island further away that's actually a national park that we visited during one of our days. We went snorkeling by it, and I got violently sick because I didn't take Dramamine because I thought it would be okay, and I got so sick that I had to get back on the boat because I was just getting sick even snorkeling. But on the way there, we saw dolphins, I saw an eel, I saw so many different fish, I saw sea turtles, hermit crabs, everything like that. It was really cool. So I was, on the way there and the way back, I was like, hey, ocean, it's me again. Thanks for all the cool sights. I'm sorry I got sick in you. I know you didn't mean it, So, I don't know. It's a weird experience trying to figure out if I am spiritual. Because for a long time, I didn't think I was. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. So it was a weird experience, but not a bad one. So anyways, Campanario. Absolutely fucking stunning. Every day after dinner, I would go out and swim in the cove. It was like bath water. It was so warm. The tide was really low the one day, so we got to see a lot of cool stuff. Further up past, so the station was right... I have a picture of it later. The station was right on the beach. So we have the beach, we have this hedgerow, and then I am standing in the station where this picture was taken from. So it was right on the beach. And then further up the hill, it butted up against another national either park or preserve. So there was even more rainforest. We went on a hike the first day, but honestly, at this point in the trip, I was so doggone tired and I just didn't go on many more hikes. I wandered around beaches a lot and went on a very short one, just kind of wandering around the buildings, but I only hiked up the hill once because I was just I was so beat down. Yeah. They had a bunch of cool, so this was a white-lipped peccary skull, this was a paca skull, I think this was a horse. Yeah, paca, this was an agouti, I think this one was a coati. Yeah, this one was a coati. I was so excited. They had cool skulls. This was cool. So this was on the hike that we went on the first day. Inside this tree is hollow. And I didn't take a picture because it was, they were moving around in there, but it's a bat roost. So I crawled through this tree, through this trunk and out back over here and looked up, and it goes all the way up here. It's hollow and there's just bats hanging out in there. So I got to see bats in there. That was cool. This was a little waterfall that we stopped by and I dunked my head in. And then they also had a small collection of orchids that had fallen off of stuff and then they rerooted. But this was the only one that was blooming, but he was very pretty. And then this was cool. So this was on top of the hill right before you get to the forest, there's where there was some more cabins. Most of us, we just stayed in the station. You can see the ocean over here, but this was a starfruit tree, and there was a bunch of starfruits on the ground, and there was also a trail of leafcutter ants going right through it. So it was cool because in this area, I didn't really take a picture of it. On the ground, there was a bunch of bare spots in the grass, and it's because it's where the leafcutter ants would go through all the time. So very cool. Here's a nice picture from the top. This is the field station. You can see that same cove, but just so many palm trees and banana trees and lobster claws and everything. It was really stunning. But oh my god, was it hot. It was like 85 most days, but 80 to 90% humidity. So you would just be sitting there ambiently sweating. Like I spent almost the entire time here just in my bikini or just in like a bra because I was so fucking hot. I got a killer tan though. This was really cool. It was a dragonfly, but it was like bright pink. There was lots of really cool shells. I didn't take any because again, illegal, federal crime. Also, I didn't, also just unethical. So I just took pictures. This was a barnacle. Originally, we were going to do a project about hermit crabs because there was so many little hermit crabs all over the beaches. Like, look at all these different sizes of hermit crabs. So cool. But we tried it out and it didn't work, so we ended up doing one on snails. But the hermit crabs were still very cool. There was also just monkeys hanging out on the beach. I saw howler monkeys, capuchin monkeys, and squirrel monkeys just right on the beach. There was a couple of times we were in the water and you could see them like eating fruits and fucking around in the trees right above us. It was really cool. There was also one time I saw a couple of really young capuchins like walking along the the banister of like right next to where we were sleeping. It was cool. Cool shell. These were a bunch of neurite snails, and they were actually spawning. So all of these white eggs were little snail eggs within this tide pool. Okay, now I have a bunch of pictures of snails that we found. This was a type of periwinkle. This is another cool shell. This is another snail. I'm not going to talk much about these. There was two different types of neurites. So there was this one that was mostly found that has these little bumps. And then there was this one that was normally smaller and didn't have the little bumps. And then I have pictures of, stuff that relates to the trip. This is a cool conch shell that was worn away. These are the two people I worked with, Aaron and Grant. And we were looking at snail distribution along this rocky shore, but you can see there was other people swimming. Lots of snail pictures. This was a little stream that led out into the ocean. Okay. Okay, so I have another a video of this, but this was really cool. So there was a guide named Mackenzie there, and he's like, hey guys, there is a pretty sizable bat cave, 10 minutes down the way. And it is this cave that is right above the ocean. You can hear the ocean in this clip. And they estimate that there is about 30,000 bats that go in and out of this cave every night. They're insectivorous bats, and so you can see this dark pit right here. They all come spiraling out every night, unless it's really storming, at dusk. So we walked over there, waited for like an hour, and then got to see all these bats spiraling out. Like this, it doesn't look like that many, but like this was the beginning, so there was even more later on. And also they did this for like 45 minutes. They just kept coming. It was crazy. Here's a better picture with a red light. You can see how many there are. Meow, meow, meow. They're all just zooming right past us. And at one point when we left, one actually brushed past me. Like I could feel its wing hit me. It's very cool. Lots of bats on this trip. Very, very batty. So this night was Oscar's birthday. So we didn't have gifts to give him, but we all wrote him a card, brought him random fruits, and somebody had liquor, so we did a shot with him, and we had a cake for him. It was also absolutely deluging outside, so we had to stop our presentations early, but that was fun. I took a picture of this tree because it was planted. They're actually from like Central America, more Mexico area, but I think it's called like a palmetto or palmello, something like that. But I remember these flowers in Hawaii. I remember them being all over. I remember having a little like hair clip that looked like one of these made out of clay. I remember loving these flowers in Hawaii, so I was very excited to see them again. And some of them got knocked down by the storm the previous night, so I got this beautiful picture of them. And this is actually the only thing that I took. I took a single petal off of one of these guys. That's the only thing I took from Costa Rica. There's a bunch of mussels. This is more snail project stuff. Algae. This is at low tide. You can see a decent picture of the station. There's 2 of our people. This is the porch I would hang out on. Estación Biologica Campanario. And this is that banister I was talking about. Some monkeys would hop from these trees across and then back over. At one point, there was a teeny tiny, like it literally must have been like 3 or 4 day old white-faced capuchin hanging on to its mom in this tree. It was so cool. Hermit crab. Some of them were like more reddish, some of them were bluish. They would try and pinch you. There were so many. Sprouting coconut. Another hermit crab. Lots of snails. Another one of our study sites. This was the best picture I could get of a squirrel monkey. No, a spider monkey. We didn't see squirrel monkeys, we saw spider monkeys. But he was, like I said, right above us on the beach. So, pretty cool. There's another picture of him. And there's another one over there, but you can see him. He was looking at me. Some cool shells I found. I really like this one. These were pretty mother of pearl ones. This was me trying to identify the snails we saw. They had these cool mobiles made out of driftwood and like different shells. Really liked that. This is a video of hermit crabs, just to show, how many there were. All those little shells are hermit crabs moving around. And it's funny because whenever you'd get near them, they would like just tumble off. Oh, I just remembered. I was going to mention this, but way back in Palo Verde, the first station, there was dragonflies all over the place. Really big ones, too. And I remember that whenever I would be walking down, like, the dirt path towards the observatory in the swamp or the ranger station or anything, there was mosquitoes, like, all day. But there was also these dragonflies that would follow you around. Like, I would watch the same 1 or 2 dragonflies just circling around me as I was walking. And they were picking off the flies and the dragonflies that would come and try and eat from me. So they were my little hiking buddies. I really love dragonflies for that now. So that was a cool memory. I just forgot about it and mentioned it now. Oh, there was a lot of crabs on the beach, too. So here's some crabs that were digging stuff up. Thought that was very cool. Here's some sort of track. I think it was from a squirrel, but I thought it was cool. Just a nice picture of me standing on the far end. You can kind of see the cove over here. The nearest town to Campanario is, I want to say like, it's like 5 or 10 mile like hike. I think it's called Drake's Bay. They're pretty isolated. And almost everything is solar power, so at night we had to unplug all of our phones, and there was only emergency lights on and stuff. Another hermit crab. I took a lot of hermit crab pictures. They were so cute. This was cool. It was I'm pretty sure it's a coati track. So it got the 4 toes, the big thing, and then all these little claws. So, crab. This was cool. This was hermit crabs doing a shell exchange. So they all kind of go on top of each other, make this line, and they're trying to get each other to come out of the shell so that they can swap to find a shell that fits them better. So, that's cool. I saw this little bird. I don't know what it was. Maybe a mannequin, kind of warbler sized. I'm not sure what it was, but it was cool. And it was building this little nest right over the beach. So I took a picture here, and then I have another picture the next day where you can see that it's more filled in. This is just a really beautiful picture of the clouds and all of that. And you can see the island again. There was a crab molt. This was funny. So it was nighttime and somebody walked into the room and screamed bloody fucking murder. And we had to go get Dr. Rocha because this is a normal sized Red Bull can. You can see how fucking big that spider is. So a little spooky, but very cool. Oh yeah, so here's the next day. You can see it's much more filled in. Very cool. It's kind of a blurry picture, but this was a cool kind of golden capped blue tanager I found. I can't remember the name. This is just data. More pictures for the project. This is just a picture going from the trail over to the station. Oh, at the end of one of the rock things, they had this campfire set up. So on the last night, they lit a bonfire and we had s'mores, but instead of using graham crackers and chocolate, we had chicky, which is this one type of cookie that's basically like a thin shortbread cookie with a layer of like chocolatey, creamy, fudgy stuff on top. So we had chicky s'mores. I brought some of those home. Chickies were great. I bought a lot of chickies. They were pretty hype. This is a picture standing there facing the rest of it at high tide. So this was some of those areas I was walking around. This is the tree that had the bird nest in it. There's Katie again, and the station. And you can see how high it goes up. Some birds. There was a lot of pelicans. I saw some magnificent frigate birds. Lots of good bird watching here too. Lizard on the wall. Really big toad. On the last day, people discovered that all the coconuts sitting around we could actually eat. So we started cracking them open like monkeys. Like at one point, I just went over with this other girl named Ava and Liam, who was the guy in my group from the first project, and we were like, let's go crack open some coconuts. So we just walked down the beach, and we found coconuts and would like shake them, and then we just started like bashing them against the rocks and tearing them open. And I found like the rusty head of a old pickaxe, and we used that to crack it open. It was literally like monkey mode. I think we were going insane, but the coconuts tasted good. The coconut water tastes really good. So this is Erin and Hannah with coconuts. And then I took the coconuts to take some pictures. There's me in my bra because I was hot as hell. This guy was cool. So this was a common black hawk, or they call it a crab hawk. And there was two of them that were just hanging out, swooping around the station the whole time. Because further... Let me see. Okay, like further up the hill, like over here, up by where the starfruit tree was, they had a nest that they were building. So like the whole time we were there, I was just watching these birds carry sticks up there and catch crabs and do stuff. So I finally got a decent picture of him. He's pretty cool. I'll say, okay, so on the last day before we did the campfire thing, we also did, apparently they make all their visitors do this. They have sugarcane growing, and they cut down some of the sugarcane, and then they put it in this press, and we rolled these sticks until we got enough sugarcane water that we had a drink. So some people added alcohol to it. I just drank it straight. Had a little starfruit in it. And they gave us all these cute little carved, I think they were coconut cups. But it was very nice. Mine had parrots on it. And then here is later that day. This is that coconut that I worked very hard to crack open. Actually cut my finger on it. They are sharper than they look, but it was pretty good. Oh, and then... There was a picture of it earlier, but inside the dining hall, they have all these little boards hanging up in the rafters from different groups that have visited them. So there was like 4 or 5 of them from other Kent State years, but we got to sign our thing. This right here, Helena, was the visiting scientist that came with us. She was this like middle-aged Costa Rican lady who was so nice. She was so nice, and she was a marine biologist, and she told us everything we were seeing while we were snorkeling. She helped us identify her snails. Just really cool lady. I was a big fan of her. During one of the lectures that she had, she was talking about how it was called from white waters to blue waters, and it was how the stuff that you do way inland, even in the mountains where the waters are white, can affect what happens in the ocean where the waters are blue. And at one point in the talk, she gave a quote that was from somebody else. It was some other talk, but I don't remember who it was from, that she had heard. And it was, I'm paraphrasing here, but it was like, the time for being just a scientist is done. You have to be an activist now, too. And I really liked that, because I think that's something I kind of try to live by. So I thought that was really cool. So shout out to Helena. She was awesome. I wrote down her name fully somewhere. I don't know. She was really cool. So now we get to possibly the roughest part of the trip. So we were supposed to leave on the 16th. So we get all of our shit into the boat. I pray to the ocean, say thank you for letting me stay. I'll see you again in a while. I'm scared of you. And we finally get back to Sierpe. We get on our bus. We go to, we stop at this place for lunch that was the same, it was in like the same chain as the place we stopped the very first time. And I got a stuffed coati. So this guy, I thought I took another picture. This is Beto. He is my stuffed coati. I was very excited about him. And then we stop in San Jose, we look at a couple of, shops, stop at a grocery store, and then we go to this place that it's called like Monte Campana, which is kind of like a resort, but like, more like a resort that Costa Ricans would actually go to. There was like a bar and a restaurant, swimming pool, place to hang out. But it was a little higher in like the mountains, like higher elevation, so it wasn't too hot, it was nice. Just as we're pulling in and we're unloading our shit, somebody goes, "Oh my God, guys, I just got a thing from United." We're like, "What?" He's like, "Oh yeah, our flight tomorrow is canceled." And we thought he was joking. He's like, "I am serious." At the time, the weather in the US was dog shit. It was freezing cold, there was snow everywhere, and Houston decided to ground all of their flights. So we were pretty heartbroken because I was really excited to go home. I called my mom and Robert and cried a bunch, and I was really upset. But whatever. And then I was like, I'm upset, and everybody else was upset. So a lot of us went to the bar attached to the resort, and I had my first shot of tequila, and it tasted bad. But tequila's a lot stronger than I thought, so I was a little silly for a while. I also had I think it was a blue Hawaiian. It was like a pina colada, but also with blue shit in it. It was pretty good. But, yeah, so I drank away my sorrows in Costa Rica with everybody else. And then, the spirits were pretty low, but at least we were in a pretty spot. Here was another big toad that I found in the parking lot. Here's a kind of blurry picture of San Jose from our hotel room. This is the following morning. I don't have it here, but I have a picture of me looking absolutely goofy because I was like on the floor of another person's room just laughing because I was still so tipsy. The following morning, they have rescheduled our flight. It leaves at 6:30 in the morning, so we have to... oh wait, no, that was the next day. So this is the next day where we're just waiting around, hoping that they can reschedule us. This was some random cat that people were petting, a koi fish that they had. And since Oscar knew we were all going insane and were antsy, he last minute booked a trip for us to go to this volcano that was nearby. We had to stand there for almost 45 minutes before all this fog cleared. But I actually got a pretty decent shot of the volcano. Hasn't been active for 18 years, but there's this little lake down here. You can see all the sulfury stuff. There's this little lake down there that is often like boiling because of just how hot it is still. And we actually saw a little bit of activity of like, little plumes going up and splashes. So that was kind of cool. That's actually a fly. So cool picture of the crater. And they had these absolutely massive plants. They were called poor man's umbrellas. Just thought they were cool. And Volcan Poas. That was the name of it. So I think that's my last picture. Yeah, those are my millipedes. And then we finally are able to get a flight at like 6:30 to the next morning. So we have to leave this place at 3 a.m. We drive to the airport, get through customs. And then I just have this memory of being like half conscious eating a fruit bowl in the Costa Rican airport at 4 in the morning. Like, yep. But we get on our flight, we get to Houston, we're supposed to have a flight that leaves at 2, so we had like a 2 or 3 hour layover. We're like, okay, it's fine. We get there, they have postponed our flight until 8:30, and everyone is I was like just so mad. I like called Robert and cried. I'm like, I just want to go home. Apparently it wasn't a weather thing. Apparently there was something fucked up with the plane. United gave us like food vouchers, and at like 4 o'clock, we see that they updated it again, and most of us were now on a flight that left at 6:30. So I didn't end up getting home until like 9:30 or 10, but that was better than getting home at like 1 a.m. So we'll take it. It was a long day. I hugged Robert. Atticus went insane when I got home. Talked to my mom, talked to my friends. I got gifts for people. It was good. All in all, pretty cool trip. Saw a lot of cool shit. Got probably the most bug bites of my life. No Siams are no joke. There was some low points for sure. I was very tired a lot of times. I missed Robert and my friends and all of that. There was a lot of fucking work. I really glazed over the projects, but most of the time was spent doing the projects, and then I just tried to weasel out time to go wander around and look at stuff. I would absolutely go back, just on my own terms, of course. I feel like there's other things I'd like to see. There's places I would have liked to spend more time. There's places I would have liked to spend less time. As cool as MonteVerde was, I feel like I really didn't see that much. I saw a lot. I thought Campanario was really cool, but getting there was such a nightmare that I don't know if I would go back, as cool as it was. But yeah, a lot of new memories, maybe some new spirituality, a couple cool knickknacks. I mostly got like carved wooden things. Showed that sloth. I got the plushie. I got a little like carved hummingbird that I hung up. But pretty cool. I don't regret going. And I've rambled for long enough, so that's that. All right, my throat hurts. Bye-bye.